So if you want to give the definition of artificial pollination, simply pollination by human being artificially is called artificial pollination. What is hybridization? Pollination made by human being between two plants having desirable characteristics to produce a new variety of plant is called artificial pollination, because hybridization is also a kind of artificial pollination. That is why it is also called artificial pollination or hybridization. Now, what is fertilization? Fertilization means fusion of male and female gamete is called fertilization. Fusion of male gametes and female gametes. That means you just go through the diagram. Pollen grains are showing here on the stigma. After reaching the pollen grains on the stigma, they produce only one pollen grain will produce pollen tube. All pollen grains will not be able to make a pollen tube. Only one pollen tube will be produced by only one pollen grain. This pollen tube then goes to the style and ultimately reaches into the ovary through the micropyle. Micropyle is a very small hole, micropyle. Then inside the ovary, eggs are there, and pollen grains contain, it is not given clearly in the book, I am just discussing very briefly. Pollen grains contain two nucleus or two nuclei. Two nuclei, one is generative nucleus, another is tube nucleus. The generative nucleus divides to form two sperm nuclei. These two sperm nuclei actually called male gametes. And slowly the tube nucleus will be degenerated. So ultimately these two sperm nuclei will enter into the ovary to fuse the egg. Then the eggs will be fused and fertilization is occurred in this way. So what happens after fertilization? After fertilization, a cell is produced which is called zygote. You just see here, it is written by using red color. Male gamete, that is pollen, I mean sperm nuclei you can say, or male gamete, plus female gamete, that is egg, fused together to form zygote. Zygote is a single celled structure. Now after fertilization, this zygote undergoes to form embryo and embryo axis and cotyledons. Afterwards I am discussing. So what happens to the ovules and what happens to the ovary after fertilization? After fertilization, ovary enlarges to form fruit and ovules develop into seeds. So ovules are the ripened ovary and ovules are the seeds are the ripened ovules and fruits are the ripened ovary. Now see, the diagram of seed is given here. It is a dicot seed because two cotyledons are showing here. Just go through. After fertilization, the zygote divides and grows into an embryo which consists of cotyledons. I think you have an idea about cotyledons and embryonal axis. See in the diagram, axis is written here instead of embryonal axis. This embryonal axis has two parts. The upper part is called plumule and the lower part is called radicle. Radicle develops into root system and plumules develops into shoot system. So the lower part of the axis is called radicle, from where the root system develops and which forms root systems given here, and the upper part is called plumule which grows shoot system. So when this is okay, once again, plumule, radicle, cotyledon, embryo, everything is discussed. Only seed coat. Seed coat is the outermost covering of seed. Seed coat is the outermost covering of seed. That is called seed coat. And you know that new plants can be grown from seed, and the process by which seedlings, I mean the small tiny plants are called seedlings. The process by which seedlings are produced from seed is called germination. So when if we keep a seed on the floor, it will not be able to germinate because the seed is not getting the proper conditions. Now the question is, what are the proper conditions for germination? So when a seed gets proper conditions, it grows into a new plant, and the process is called germination, and the conditions are air, water and warmth, that is temperature. Air, water and warmth. So these three are the conditions required for germination. Now I am giving some homework questions, you just try to solve. Define, I mean definition you have to write, explain. It is given in the first or second slide, I think. In asexual mode of reproduction, you can easily get in tissue culture, it is given very nicely. Then self pollination, you can get the answer from the book. Hybridization I have given, or you can get from your book. Vegetative propagation, it is given in the book. Tissue culture I have given nicely, or you can take the answer, write the answer from the book. Binary fission given in the book. Unisexual flower given in the book, or from the slide also here it is given, you can write from here. Then differentiate between sexual and asexual reproduction. It is not given very clearly in the book. So how will you write the answer? You just make two columns. In first column write down asexual reproduction. In second column you just write sexual reproduction. In first number write involves one organism only. In sexual reproduction write involves two organisms. Then it is a rapid method, that means asexual. Sexual, it is a slow method. In asexual, seedless plants can be propagated by this method, and in sexual, seedless plants cannot be propagated by this method. In asexual, offsprings are identical to their parents. Offsprings are identical to their parents. And sexual column, offsprings show variations. That means offsprings are not identical to their parents. They are showing some new characteristics. That is called variations. You are some similarities with your parents, but you are not the carbon copy of your parents. You must have some new characteristics. That is called variations. Now mention the changes that occur in a flower after fertilization. That means after fertilization what happens to sepal, petal, stamen, carpel, like this. So sepal, petal and stamen wither off or fall off, and ovary enlarges to form fruit, and ovules changes into seeds. Then what is germination? It is given here. Name the factors. Just now I told you. Name the different methods of asexual vegetative propagation with example. So you have to write the name of different methods of asexual artificial vegetative propagation, that is cutting, grafting, layering, with example. Give one example only.